Perfect. We are good to go. So thank you again. My name is Rachel Jensen, Vice President of Sales for ECI Development, and I am so unbelievably excited to welcome you to the official launch of Ava, Eco Village Asuchillo. This is, I think, one of the communities that is highly sought after. We've seen an incredible response so far, and we are extremely excited to share the details with you. And not just share the details with you, but also introduce you to the two masterminds behind this community. So Ava is located at Gran Pacifica, which is a larger 2,500 acre property on the Pacific in Nicaragua. And we're going to go through the details a little bit more. We're going to go through where Ava is located specifically within the community. We're going to talk about the community a little bit more. But what I wanted to do first, if you could switch to the next slide, Spencer, is introduce you to those two folks who are going to be here joining us. And first and foremost, we have Spencer Hiebert. Spencer really is the mastermind behind this development. He really saw a huge need for these sort of homes within the Gran Pacifica community, specifically even more so in Nicaragua, where we're located at Gran Pacifica. We have some of the best surf waves there. There's a lot of folks who are coming down and looking for accommodations or looking for a place where they can live like this with Ava. So Spencer's going to go more into a little bit more about him. And Spencer, why don't you also tell us what really prompted your interest in tiny homes and eco-friendly nature? And then from there, we'll introduce Patrick.
Thank you, Rachel. Well, it all kind of started with my interest in sailing, actually. You kind of get forced into the lifestyle. Growing up, me and my dad would do a lot of sailing, and you learn very quick all the different ways you need to be efficient and more self-sustainable in a way. So it all began with that, and learning the systems that boats used, particularly sailboats, but all yachts really use a lot of solar and wind energy, and as well as water desalinators to create their own water sources. And it all stemmed off of that, of my interest in it, and realistically my interest in tiny living as well. This is a tiny home community, and we do have one larger two-bedroom model, but it is still technically a tiny home as it's under 500 square feet. But it all began with the boating lifestyle and trying to find a way that we can convert that over to land. And also being in Nicaragua, I've spent a lot of time at Gran Pacifica myself and with my father as well. And we've actually developed another community, Milagro Verde there. And that was a larger home off-grid community. They're actually hybrid homes there, whereas the Ava community is entirely off-grid. But the homes at the Milagro Verde community are hybrid homes, which means they also have a connection to the grid as well. But the idea was to downsize that even further and bring it to a level where it can be completely self-sufficient, really. But realistically, the only thing that is connected to any sort of quote-unquote grid at Ava is the water, and that is something that we did want to keep very just reliable, really. Water is not something that I don't think anybody wants to mess around with. You want that to be a reliable source. So that is gained through Gran Pacifica's water treatment facility. But other than that, they are completely off-grid with everything, including internet. They're not even hardwired for internet. That is a signal that is received through a radio tower.
Fantastic. And we are going to learn a lot more about what's going on at Ava throughout the presentation here. But first, or I guess secondly, let's introduce Patrick Hiebert. As you may have noticed there, and when you were listening to Spencer, that Patrick is Spencer's dad. And we are very fortunate at ECI Development to also have Patrick with us as our Chief Operating Officer. So Patrick, why don't you give us a little bit more about your background with ECI, your background with Milagro Verde, how you first got introduced to Nicaragua, and then I know you're also going to be sharing information with us about the country generally, which we'll dig into after your introduction.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Rachel. I'm glad to be on the webinar here and talking to a lot of folk. I see lots of people, hundreds, it looks like, connecting today, so that's great. Yeah, make a long story short, similar to what Spencer was saying, obviously we were at one point we were living on a boat together. I had lived in I have a computer software background, so you know, went through the technology side of things and got interested in self-sustaining and self-sustaining lifestyle, basically. Same sort of thing, you know, went from a bigger home to smaller home to living in an apartment to living on a boat. And when you're living on a boat, you know, there's no long extension cord that goes out into the ocean. So you learn to, you know, the two sides of the off-grid type of living. One side of it is generating your own power and water and that sort of thing. And the other side is conservation and just being smart about the use of, specifically about use of power and water, because, you know, there's a limited supply that you can generate. And it, you know, it just became, you know, interesting. And I wanted to apply that with the technologies that I knew of from the computer industry to homes. And as Spence had mentioned there, we have another community at Gran Pacifica called Milagro Verde, which means the green miracle in Spanish. And basically that was a proof of concept. I wanted to create a community that was, as Spence mentioned, it's mostly hybrid homes. There actually is a couple that are completely off the grid there as well. But those are larger homes, 3-4 bedrooms, you know, up to one of them is 4,000, 4,500 square feet. So pretty big homes. But I wanted to take the same kind of approach as we know are living in the boat, where, you know, I'm not paying a power bill every month and those sorts of things. So we proved it was possible with solar and wind power, and then you know, as we had done over our own life, was, you know, minimized, you know, the size of what we call right sizing. You know, it's kind of a common term now. Is, you know, you realize when you live in a smaller space that you don't really need all those big rooms that you rarely go into. So we tried to make a design of tiny homes, and here in Nicaragua, and also ECI is doing that, you know, in Belize and also in Panama, and expanding the concept elsewhere as well. But, you know, very excited about the Nicaraguan one. It's probably one of the most beautiful spots that I know of in the world, beside a really pretty river, but maybe one of the nicest beaches that I've ever been to. And I've been to a lot of beaches in my life, and, you know, the expanse of nobody living there, and you know, or being on the beach. There are people living there, but, you know, it's not crowded, not for swimming or surfing or whatever you want to do. So it's a really beautiful spot. So it just seemed like the best of all worlds, Nicaragua. I love the country of Nicaragua. I'm Canadian citizen, but I gave up my Canadian residency, and I am a Nicaraguan resident now as well. So, you know, there was many reasons for that, but we'll talk about them a little bit as well as we go through the presentation.
Fantastic. Well, why don't we get started here? And so just so everybody knows the structure of how the presentation is going to work, we have the first few slides after these here is going to be about Nicaragua. So we're going to cover why Nicaragua. We're going to cover, I think, some of the questions that have come through so far about safety and really what everybody should know when they're considering this country. And in addition to that, then we're going to jump right into the opportunities, and then we are going to have time for Q&A. So do send any of the questions throughout the presentation here. I did just see a message from Sherry saying she's getting an echo or feedback. If you are getting that, just type yes or no into the Q&A. I just want to see if it's across the board here or if it may just be on some folks' end. But type that in, and then no, I'm seeing a handful of no here's. Okay, so I think we're going to continue forward. Sherry, we'll make sure you get a copy of the recording. I apologize that there is some feedback, but we'll make sure that you certainly get a copy of the recording. All right, Spencer, Patrick, I think we're up to Patrick. Why don't you get started here, and we'll go from there.
All right, I just I stopped my video because I have limited internet bandwidth where I am. I'm actually in an island in Belize right now. I'm not in Nicaragua, where we do have high-speed Wi-Fi there, but. First of all, just so everybody knows where Nicaragua is, sometimes you say Nicaragua and they say, oh, it's a country in Africa, right? Well, no, it's actually pretty close to the US, Canada. It's right just above Costa Rica. And so it's in Central America, the largest country in Central America, kind of dead center there, but pretty close to, you know, if you're flying from Miami or Houston or Atlanta, there's direct flights. And so it's a beautiful country. It has both ocean, or both the Pacific Ocean and the Caribbean Sea on the other side. And, you know, there's beautiful spots on both borders, or both oceans, so both beaches. All right, next slide. I'm going to go through these slides fairly quickly because I know we want to focus on the Ava project. But Gran Pacifica in the red star there is exactly where the Ava project is. It's the closest to beachfront resort and residence to Managua. Managua is the capital city with the international airport. So now we just recently had the road fully paved all the way now from Managua to right to the gate at Gran Pacifica. And that, you know, that's a big deal with resorts on the beach in Central America. A lot of them do not have a nice year-round road to use. So it's a big thing, and we've seen a lot of interest in the property and the resort over the last month or so since the road has been done. In fact, I know we sold a number of properties just this last weekend, and I know a bunch of Ava reservations were made even this afternoon. So you know, there's a lot of positive momentum going for Gran Pacifica right now. So it's pretty exciting time. But yeah, basically almost west, a little bit southwest of Managua. If you can see close enough on there, you can see that below Managua is the city of Granada. It's a beautiful, beautiful city. It's actually the oldest city in all of the Americas. There's, you know, it's right beside the large lake. That's the largest lake north of Titicaca in South America. And you know, there's fortresses and things like that on the side of the lake there in the city. It's a beautiful old Spanish colonial city. You know, those fortresses were used to fend off the pirates of the Caribbean a long time ago. So, you know, it's kind of like the movie scene made real there. So those fortresses have been turned into markets. It's really, really a cool spot. And the Messiah market is, see between Managua and Granada there. Messiah has a great fortress that's been changed into one of the more popular artisan markets in the country. Leon, a little bit further north there, is another great city. The oldest cathedral in the Americas is in Leon. And so there's all sorts, the towns and cities and the villages of Nicaragua are just amazing. And you have the volcano range and lakes and everything, lots of things to do. I'm going to get hung up on these slides if I spend too much time on this, because I love the country and could talk about it all the time. But Rachel, are you able to hear me?
I lost you for a couple of minutes there, but it looks like I just got a message, or not a couple minutes, a couple of seconds, but it sounds like it might be my side. So keep on going, Patrick. I didn't mean to interrupt. Keep on going.
Okay, no problem. Give me a sign if I'm talking to myself here. There's a list of 10 things there. Why Nicaragua? I mean, people, first of all, when you hear the word or the country of Nicaragua, think, what? Isn't that the country that, you know, back in the 70s, 80s had the revolution? And yes, it was, but that's 30, 40 years ago. It's a beautiful, safe country now. In fact, it's one of the safest countries in the Americas. I have a slide on the comparison slide later, so we won't focus on that too much. But yeah, it's a great place. My family, Spencer and his sisters, you know, kind of half grew up down there, you know, riding around everywhere and without any issues. Went from the top to the bottom of the country all the time. So obviously we're promoting the real estate, and it's very inexpensive. Where else can you kind of find a tiny home type of community or any kind of community on the beach at the prices that we're talking about today? Generally extremely low cost of living. I mean, you can use so many different examples. I remember I got caught in Belize in this COVID thing, and it's not a bad place to be stuck during a lockdown period, I guess. But you know, I'd love to be at home in Nicaragua. When my wife and I were last there, we just went shopping at San Rafael, which is a town, a village, I guess, near Gran Pacifica, where it has a great market. And anyway, make a long story short, we filled up kind of on those burlap bags, the sacks that kind of come up to your hip, you know, and filled up with potatoes and tomatoes and mangoes and bananas and everything. And it was $2.80 for probably weeks worth of fruits and vegetables. And so, you know, that gives you an idea of the kind of cost of living you're dealing with. Obviously, there's many natural and historical treasures. I mentioned a couple of, you know, the cathedral, the volcano range. One of my favorite places to go is the Messiah volcano. It's one of the only volcanoes, I think, in the world, maybe the only volcano in the world. You can actually drive your car right up to the edge of the lava cauldron and look down. They tell you to back up your car or put your car in reverse and face outwards in the parking spot. I think that's kind of pointless, because if it ever blows, I don't think you're going to care what direction your car was facing. You're probably not getting out of there that quickly. But anyway, it's a pretty cool place to go and see. If you know, it's one of the kind of natural wonders of the world, I think, in some terms. So yeah, obviously you have a very nice climate year round. It's warm. The Gran Pacifica is at sea level, so you have a very constant temperature, somewhere in between, in Fahrenheit, between 75 and 90, 92 or whatever, almost every day of the year. And so it's if for a Canadian like me, it's nice to always know I'm going to walk out into that kind of temperature. So it's very close to North America. It's got a growing tourism industry. Obviously, it's had a little bit of a hiccup in the last while, some political issues, and then obviously the COVID thing, which the whole world's sharing the issue right now. But in general, the tourism is growing. Nicaragua never did a good job in the past of promoting itself. Everybody knows the Costa Rica, and everybody knows the beautiful, jungles and beaches of Costa Rica. Well, Nicaragua is basically the same kind of landscape and environment, just at maybe a quarter of the price. So, that it just hasn't done a very good job of promoting its tourism until, well, somewhat recently, but it's doing better now. And it's kind of becoming the undiscovered secret that people are discovering. One of the reasons I chose Nicaragua, all these are reasons I guess I chose Nicaragua to become a resident in, but people that are from other places in the world have exactly the same land owning rights as a local Nicaraguan. That's not always the case. If you're trying to buy beachfront in Mexico or something like that, you need to go through a trust, and it needs to have a Mexican native on that trust, and all those sorts of things. Now, Nicaragua doesn't have that, and anybody from anywhere can own land just as if you were a Nicaraguan yourself. It has very easy residency programs. Like I said, I'm a Nicaraguan resident. I have the investor residency. I think Rachel's going to talk a little bit about that later, so I'll just leave that one. And an amazingly friendly group of people, some of the nicest people in the world. I think, as a Canadian, we often are said, "Oh, you guys are always friendly." Well, I think Nicaraguans are actually friendlier than we are as a people. So we have a couple of quotes there on the safety. I mean, like I said, a lot of people have, if you're my age, I'm in my mid 50s. If you're my age, you're back in the late 70s, early 80s, you heard about Nicaragua and, all the issues that were happening there, and the internal country issues. And, that's a long time ago. Lots of things have changed in that amount of time. And I think I have another slide coming up. I'm not sure if it's the next one, but let's go ahead, Spencer. And yeah, so here, I think this is a good example, of things where we can talk about the safety, or we can just look at the actual stats. So nobody likes to think of the homicides per 100,000 inhabitants, but it's a good scale, right? So you have Salvador and Honduras, which are, obviously not as safe in their countries in Central America as well. And you have Costa Rica and Panama, which are very popular, tourist and expat countries. And you see Nicaragua is actually safer than them, as I think about 7.4, to Costa Rica's 11. But then if you compare it to even some, cities in the US, like Cleveland, Ohio, somewhere north of 30, St. Louis, Missouri, getting close to 60, I think. So, you see that it is actually statistically, a very safe country. And I remember I put this other slide or other graph in there as well, because sometimes it's a perception thing too. So this is crime and theft as a major problem for doing business. So at least a perceived problem. So you'll see, basically no one rated that it was tough to do business in Nicaragua because of crime or theft. Whereas even, Canada had a few people, and US a little bit higher up. And obviously the countries near the top, consider it to be a problem. But Nicaragua is, I have businesses in Nicaragua, and I have never had any issue with crime or theft being something that affected the business. So we have the emerging destination curve, and basically the way this works is properties that are up top and closer and to the right are more mature in the market in terms of, let's look at it from a rental perspective, and countries down the curve are, you know, being more discovered now, less mature in their market, but also have a, you know, more than a higher likelihood of capital gains, obviously, as people can purchase property at a much less cost now. As they move up this curve, they become more expensive. And so you see the Pacific coast of Costa Rica is a very popular destination, but it's also at the top of this curve. So, you know, if you're buying property there, you're going to be paying, you know, a premium for it. Likewise in Panama, you know, we have Belize kind of middle ground in here. And I would make the argument that Nicaragua is probably a little bit higher on this curve than we've got it in there. But, you know, it certainly has a lot of room to grow from a capital gains perspective in terms of your investment. But I do pretty well. Full disclosure, I have condominiums at Gran Pacifica and other property in the country, and I do quite well with the rental returns in Nicaragua. So I can't really say it's that low on the curve in terms of maturity. It's, you know, it's becoming a more discovered place for sure. So, you know, as I mentioned, the cost of living in Nicaragua is quite low. Everybody's, you know, standard of living is a little different, or what they like to do. You know, if you want to go, for instance, going to a movie in Managua, the nice thing about Gran Pacifica, it's close enough, you know, 40-45 minutes away from the city. So my wife and I will go out for dinner and we'll go to a movie, and they have VIP room movies, which is basically you get in a special theater where you have a big kind of armchair, leather armchair, reclines, and they bring you drinks. Like you can order a glass of wine or a beer or whatever you want, and they bring it to you in your seat, and all that is, I think it was just under $3 or around $3 for the movie. So, you know, there's things you can do going out for dinner, you know, buying lobster. Obviously we're on the beach there, and, you know, lobster, seafood and things like that is much less expensive than in North America. So in general, you can just basically have a much higher quality lifestyle for a much lower cost. And as I mentioned, as a Canadian, you know, one of the check boxes that have to be able to be checked when you're looking for another place to live is a year-round climate that's not quite like Canada's. Now, admittedly, I spent most of my life in Vancouver Island in Canada, and it's got it's a beautiful place, a beautiful ocean, the same ocean as we have in front of Gran Pacifica. It's just that Gran Pacifica, the ocean's a lot warmer. But, you know, we also get the same kind of climate as Seattle, which is almost half a year of rain up in Vancouver. So, you know, I really, really like the climate in Nicaragua as well. I say growing again in tourism, as I mentioned, you know, there was some political unrest a couple of years ago in Nicaragua, and that put a damper on the tourism for a part of the time, at least in 2018. And, you know, it's in a recovery mode. I mean, I had in my rental properties, I had the best rental return ever in 2019 that I'd had, despite the issues that we had go on in 2018 for a few weeks. And so I can't say that it's not growing again. I think we're seeing a real comeback, and we just, we're looking at the occupancy numbers for rentals in Gran Pacifica this month, and they're looking pretty good too. And this is summer. This is a time when, COVID has stopped people from traveling. We still get a lot of local people from Managua, Granada, and the cities that want to go to the beach. And so we're still getting quite a few tourists, coming to Gran Pacifica, even though they might be kind of tourists, from their own country. And Costa Ricans love to come to Nicaragua as well, because it's feels like home, but it's less expensive. So we've done pretty well on the tourism side. And you can see in the graph here that, where most of the tourism does come from. A couple of weeks ago or so, I think it was, I did a whole presentation on, Nicaragua itself and the other communities of Gran Pacifica. And so, that if for more details, you can get contact us there at info@ecidevelopment.com, and we can send you the information, the links to that presentation if you'd like to look into it more. A lot more detail spent on the country and on the other communities within Gran Pacifica. But on this presentation, I'm sorry I probably took up more time than I should have, but we'll let Spencer go ahead and talk about the Ava community that everybody's interested in.
Alrighty, thank you, Dad. So we're gonna jump right into Ava here. As you can see, this is the master plan, and homes 1 through 15 are on the first phase. As of right now, we are still having reservations kind of as we speak almost. But as of right now, I believe about 8 of them are reserved. So reservations are open right now, and you can contact us if you want a reservation form, first right of refusal form, and we can get that off to you. Here is the location relative to the rest of the Gran Pacifica property. So down on the right corner, you'll see around number 6 and 8 there. That is the Los Perlas building. So that's where there's currently condominiums set up that are rented out. And there's that's currently the hub of Gran Pacifica, is what I would call it. That's where the restaurant is, the pool, and just above that in the blue, number 1 is San Diego Viejo, and that is the main development of homes. Now, the distance between San Diego and Viejo and the Ava community, it would take about 5 minutes to drive that distance. Or you could walk it on the beach in probably 20 or less. But so it's a nice distance from the main development in the sense that you get some level of solitude and separation from it, but you're very conveniently distanced where you can still get to the main development and enjoy all the amenities that come with that. And there's a long list of amenities at Gran Pacifica, from golfing to horseback riding to fishing, the restaurant, and the list goes on. But you can see on the left side here, that's actually north, but it's on the picture here, it is left on the map. That is the Ava community. It is from the west facing, or the lower homes in the community. It would take you about just under 2 minutes to walk from the community to touch sand to the beach. So, and it is immediately also located beside the Asuchillo River. I might be pronouncing that wrong. It is a native word to Nicaragua, but it is immediately beside this river. So you get, a nice freshwater option there as well. So in general, the idea of Ava is to create a eco-sensible and eco-friendly community of like-minded thinkers, and to have a sense of community and people that are looking for kind of self-sufficient and efficient lifestyle. Whether that be downsizing, or if you want a partial vacation rental, you want to live there part year and just relax for part of your year. There will be a variety of reasons that you may want this, but in general, the idea is to look for people that are looking to push towards being less reliant on the system, so to speak, and be more reliant on themselves. And it does create a great opportunity there. Like we said, it's right beside the Asuchillo River and the Asuchillo Surf Beach, which I myself am quite familiar with, as that's the beach I learned to surf on. If you're not a surfer, it's a great beach to learn on. And it also does have some bigger days as well, but we'll get into that a little more later on. some of the features it includes is a common area that will have a pool, a large palapa, and a pool kind of semi-surrounding that palapa. It's a pretty cool layout we have, and we'll show some renderings of that. There'll be a fire pit lounge hangout area. In this large palapa, you'll have it'll have Wi-Fi as well as a power supply, so that it's another option to get. So you don't, if you work from home or if you're a digital nomad, you have another option there where you don't have to feel cooped up in your home all the time if you want to get out and feel it's more of a sense of a community there. Like I said, there's the Asuchillo surf beach, and there's also the Meat Grinder surf beach, and that surf beach gained a reputation and its name based on the fact that it is a reef break. So that is for more advanced surfers, but that is one of the two options. There is a beginner or a more forgiving surf beach nearby as well, and we'll talk about the beaches a little more later on. So these are fully off-grid, like I said early on. The only connection to the quote-unquote grid would be the water, and that's just for the sake of having a very reliable water source. But because Nicaragua is so close to the equator, it really gives solar power is extremely efficient there. It creates a great opportunity to rely on solar, as you receive a lot more solar power there than you would say where I am currently in British Columbia, Canada. Panels just aren't as efficient up here, but down there they really are. They get very close to what they're rated at, and that is a huge bonus. And another feature, a main feature, is the gray water recycling. And what this means is essentially there is fresh water, gray water, and black water. Black water will be stored in a holding tank, and then it will be transported to a treatment facility. And that is a new facility that has been put in at Gran Pacifica. But as far as gray water, which is about 80 to 90% of the water a house uses, that is all recycled, ran through a filtration system, and then used to water your garden. So it is a way to prevent complete waste of a resource that is not necessarily needed to be wasted, because quickly rinsing your hands in the sink could be considered a waste, but when it's going to a second use, it makes it a lot easier to stomach, for sure. Some things to expect around the Gran Pacifica community, and Ava in particular, would be, of course, surfing. We've talked about that. Fishing. I personally have fished the ocean right in front of Gran Pacifica, and I've caught a wide variety of fish. It is really good fishing there. From stingray to tuna to rooster fish, and the rooster fish is probably the most unique fish I've caught there. Puts up a great fight. That was a catch and release, because that was rooster fish are quite rare fish, so our guide wanted to keep him alive, and rightfully so. But yeah, great fishing there, and the Asuchillo River also provides some freshwater fishing as well. A sense of community, again, like-minded people living within the Ava community, but also Gran Pacifica as a whole. There is a great community there. I've met a lot of friends there, from employees at Gran Pacifica. Some of my best friends are employed there, and to the residents at Gran Pacifica. Very friendly people, and a great community there. Of course, sustainable living. We've talked about that, from the solar to the reuse of water, and just kind of trying to reduce your footprint as much as far as consuming goes. And then a sense of freedom as well. This comes with, of course, reducing massive mortgages that would come from homes. I mean, I know up in Canada, homes are averaging at least $500,000 these days, and pushing some communities closer to $1 million. Massive mortgages, of course, that are a huge strain, and just reducing that, or having it as a rental property and helping offset some of your costs back home is another option, and it just provides more freedom in your life. So we're going to dive in a little more about the sustainable living here. We got three main points. Three main features here in Ava. The green roof being the first one is, the idea here is that green roofs are very good at insulating. Most of the thermal transfer that happens in a home happens through the roof. So whether that is in the north here, when you have it, you're losing your heat. While down south there, you're obviously trying to keep heat out. And the sun beaming on the roof is, of course, the most transfer that happens there. So the green roof helps prevent that massively, just adding another thermal barrier. And then on top of that, we've also designed them to have shaded awnings for the solar panels to sit on. And that also provides, anytime you can shade a roof that, or any part of a home, that provides a huge cooling effect as well. We talked about the gray water recycling, which essentially is a way to reduce your waste and keep your garden alive without having to water it every day. And off-grid living with the solar, it's the most efficient way to gain energy in that country and a lot of countries around the equator. And another way to be a little more efficient and self-sustainable. So just some pictures of the Asuchillo River here, and on the top there, that is the Asuchillo Beach. I've been on that beach many times in my life, and I will be many times in the future, I'm sure. It's a beautiful surf beach. It goes for miles of quality waves. And if you are a surfer, we'll talk about that a little more. But and then the lower two pictures, you can see the river. Very cool jungle environment there. And of course, if you're into paddleboard and kayaking, any water sports you can think of, it's a great option. I know a friend of mine living at Gran Pacifica has a small sailboat that it's on a trailer, but he trailers it down to the beach and does some sailing in his time. So a lot of options there as far as water sports or activities go. As far as the surf goes, we've touched on it a bit here, but we'll talk about Asuchillo. Like I said, I personally learned to surf there. It ranges from nice, small 2-foot days for people that are kind of wanting to get into surfing, all the way up to, I've heard of 12-foot days at Asuchillo. I've seen personally about 8-9-foot waves. And I've surfed just under that myself. Really great beach, very forgiving sand bottom. It's not intimidating like a lot of breaks can be. Like for instance, the meat grinders break is definitely a more advanced break, as it breaks over a reef, but it is a very consistent wave. I've never surfed it myself, but a lot of people go to Gran Pacifica specifically to surf the meat grinder break, and it's a quality, consistent wave. Creates a great barrel, and it's definitely for more advanced surfers though, because of the risk of being right over top of the reef. So we're going to dive a little more into the homes here and talk about the numbers, and of course financing is available with these homes, but we will talk about that a little deeper further on. On the left here you see the Laura model. This is a great model for people that aren't interested in a lofted model, because it is all just single floor. You do have the stairwell going up to your rooftop patio that is shaded with that solar panel awning, but as far as the actual bed and living quarters goes, that is all on a single floor. So that's great for people that either have maybe a disability that doesn't allow them to have a loft, or just aren't interested in the loft. Although personally, I do like lofts, but I completely understand that there are people that have less interest in them. On the right here, you see the El Cone model. That is a more of a classic tiny home design with a full-size loft up there. A nice patio as well that comes off of the loft. And one of my favorite models is it's very sleek and handsome design. It's sharp and a great use of space. You have the Perico model, which is our most compact and efficient model. In a sense, it is a true tiny home, as it comes in just over 250 square feet. But I really do like this model, as well as it's a semi-loft model, but it is very true to tiny home living, as it uses very creative ways to use the space. But we'll dive into the details a little further on here. And then you have on the right the Macaw model, which is based off of the Laura model with the addition of a second room. It's been adjusted slightly with the addition of a second room on top there. And this is great for, well, obviously smaller families, maybe people that like to separate their work office from their living quarters, which I fully understand. Living from home, or working from home rather, it can be nice to have a separate office there to really make sure you're focusing on your work. There's a variety of reasons why this model would be ideal for you. Maybe even a couple that needs, their husband needs a doghouse. I don't know. There's the list goes on. But we have the Laura here. So here's the floor plan. The Laura, as you can see, has the green roof. As I stated before, the solar panel awning. Green roof is great. It's a great area as it adds to the aesthetic as well, but it also is a great area to hang out in the evenings. And if you want extra guests, being tiny homes, it's nice to have a larger area that you can support more guests for things like dinners. You have this serving window you see on the face of it, and that does a really good job of bringing the inside living outside and vice versa. Tiny homes, it's really important to have features like this to kind of to open up the home. And you'll see in the renderings as well that we also try to kind of bring some in the bathroom, some jungle elements in, lots of plant life in there for the same reason, to try to mix the inside and outside living. It creates a nice, it expands your living area by quite a bit to not feel so confined to the home itself. Here you have the Alcon model. It gives you another view of the terrace there, the patio, and this model, again, the classic loft model. Very, very common to have this loft design in tiny homes, as it is just an efficient use of space. And this is quite a tall tiny home though. So this model has a full height loft, so you don't have to worry about climbing into it and bonking your head like a lot of tiny homes offer. The Perico, again, the most compact model. And here you can see what I was talking about with the design and having a very efficient use of space here. Underneath the loft bed, the main bed there is actually where you have the battery storage, extra storage. You have a slide out closet that slides underneath there, and a computer desk. So your office is directly underneath the bed. This is, and I say that they call it the true tiny home because it really does kind of encapsulate what a tiny home is, and that is just using space as efficiently as possible. And above the bathroom is where the second bed is as well. So great efficient use of space on this model. And again, it has the rooftop patio there, or rooftop terrace, and the solar panel awning to help with insulate and keep the home a little cooler. And then the Macaw model, the 2-bedroom, you can just see the layout here. It's very similar to the Laura model with some minor adjustments to, like I said, to support the second bedroom. And you have your battery storage and your washer out separated from the house. It is nice to, when you can, to separate the battery storage. When they aren't separated, you have a ventilation system in place, but it is nice to separate them as well in case, and because the acids are not dangerous as long as the room is properly ventilated. But if you disconnect it from the home, then you don't have to worry about that at all. And you can see on the left the rendering that has the pass-through window. It gives an idea of how you could set up your outside patio however you want and kind of bring the outside in, and a little bar there to help to dine inside and out. Here's some renderings of the interior. This is based on the Laura model, these renderings, and it gives you an idea of the aesthetic, helps you visualize it. Our architect did a great job of designing these homes. And as you can see, the vegetation in the bathroom kind of gives it more of an earthy feel, although it has a very sleek and modern design as well. And right down to having small garden bed built into the kitchen countertop there. Here are some renderings of the common area. So you have a large palapa set up with a surrounding pool. wrapping almost entirely around the palapa. And as you can see in the bottom left corner there, you have that bar and bar stool set up there. And this is where the outlets will be, so that if you're a digital nomad, or if you want to work, or just bring your computer or whatever, your tablet, whatever you have, you can charge it here, hang out for the day, enjoy, you know, some community in the outdoors while you're working or doing whatever you want to do there. So it gives you an idea of what the aesthetic will look like. We are going to likely be adjusting the pool slightly, but this will be to have a beach design, so the pool actually acts more like has more of a beach layout as well, to bring you that much closer to the beach if you don't feel like walking the 2 minutes, which is fair enough. So I'm going to pass this over to Rachel to talk about the ROI here.
Fantastic. So very often we are getting requests for single family homes that are close to the beach for rentals. In addition to that, we have a lot of surfers who are coming to Gran Pacifica who want to be as close to the breaks as possible. We have folks who are coming on wellness retreats who want as many bungalows or as many rooms as they can get to bring their fellow wellness retreaters. And so what we've really identified, and who we've really identified as the target audience, if you are planning to rent out your home, are these demographics, are the surfers, are the wellness retreats, the people who want their own space, want to be close to the beach, the surfers, people who have space, but people who are kind of away from it all, but close to the beach and close to the amenities that they really prefer. So we have lined up here a couple of different scenarios based on the market. Now, we have a lot of intel about how rentals are going based on how our current condos are renting and how our current homes are renting. At Gran Pacifica, I know that we kind of showed the sitemap and didn't really go too far into each of the different neighborhoods, but where we have our rentals right now and our most successful rentals are at our Las Perlas oceanfront condos because of the location, because they're beachfront. A lot of times when people are coming to Gran Pacifica and to the Pacific, they want to be close to the beach, and maybe not necessarily right there on the beach, but they want to be within a couple of minute walk. And that's why I think personally Ava is going to do very, very well, because we do have homes that are very close to the beach. The whole community is close to the beach. We have amenities there. They'll have the pool. They'll be the third spaces. In addition to the groups that I was just mentioning, where we foresee a lot of the rentals also coming from our digital nomads. One of the big questions that we kept getting over and over was, how is the internet going to be? I either want to work from my home, or we want to make sure that when guests come, there's going to be great internet. And I know Spencer has belabored the point to our sales team over and over that it's going to be really quite good. But I just want to give you a quick breakdown here of what you could expect if you want to rent out your home. And we have a couple of different cases here. We have the industry standard case. So this is pretty typical for what we're seeing for the condos that are being rented right now. 60% occupancy at an average daily rate of about $149. When you get to that next line, your gross revenue is about $32,000 for the year. Now, as you break down there, you see the annual expenses. In addition to that, you see what the utility costs are, and it's obviously very minimal. And then you have the owner annual expenses, the trade license, HOA, insurance. And after all of that is paid, you are looking at about a $15,000 profit. And that is, when you're looking at your return on investment, about 14.29% of what you're paying for the home. And this home that we're looking over here, it's the 99,000 model. So right there in between, if you wanted us to run the numbers for the specific model that you're looking at, we can certainly do that for you. But I think this gives you a pretty good overview of what you can expect. And we have seen, as I said before, very similar numbers based on how our condos have performed. And I would expect that these would do really quite well, and potentially even better than that. But we do have the conservative case there on the right-hand side, and that's at 53% occupancy and average daily rate of $126 per night. And at the end of the day, that's still quite a nice net return of about 10%. So the numbers are quite favorable. It's up to you as the owner to decide if you want to rent your home or not. We would certainly recommend that if you do want to rent your home, you can go through the Gran Pacifica rental program. We have very strong connections and relationships with the online travel agencies like the Expedia, like the Booking.com, Airbnb. We're able to plug your home right there in there for you. But if you don't necessarily want to rent it, you don't have to do that either. If you want to see how it goes, rent it out first and then maybe go live in it, you could do that. I know a lot of folks that we've been talking to are looking to either come down on a full-time basis or maybe a full-time basis at some point, not quite ready for that. And some of them are just looking for a straight investment where they have a plan B, get out of Dodge if you want to come and relax on the beach, get some R&R in Nicaragua. So of course we are able to send this to you. Obviously these numbers are not guaranteed, just based on what we've seen with the current market and then also previous and prior to that. And I had a couple of people ask me so far what's going on in the current market. The borders in Nicaragua are open. Flights from the US are not yet flying down to Nicaragua. They're going to start in the beginning of September, but you are able to get down at least in the next couple of weeks. And right now what we're seeing at Gran Pacifica is a tremendous amount of locals. We've been completely sold out for the past couple of weekends. And what we're seeing is people just want to get away. They want to get to the beach. They want to go to the closest beach community to Managua. Managua is the capital. That's where a majority of the population is. And we are the closest beach community to the capital. So I think that there's a tremendous potential here. But again, that just depends on you if you want to rent out your home or if you do not. Let's go to the next slide here, Spencer. Perfect. And if you do want to finance, we do have that option available to you. There's an international bank that we work very closely with. They're based in Belize, but they love this project and they are willing to finance. Now, the one point I do want to make, if this is your first time looking at property overseas, please be aware that numbers and financing rates are probably not what you're used to. I know in the States right now, it's extremely low. But if you are not able to secure financing in the States or you are looking for options, then KeyBank is a great option for you. And with them, you are able to finance 50% of the purchase price, so 50%. And the example that we're using here is on a home that's about $99,000. So about 50% of that is going to be about $50,000. And the interest rate is 7.9%, amortized over 20 years. Now, I do want to mention that there is a balloon requirement after age 3. So after year 3, you are able to refinance if you choose, but otherwise the balloon payment would be due there after year 3. But again, you can refinance. That is that option there for you. So the amortization schedule is set as if you'd be paying it over 20 years, but then that balloon payment would be required after year 3. If anybody wants additional information on that, we can certainly run through the numbers with you, but you can see right there, your monthly payments are about $410 a month. And after the 3rd year, you either pay it off or you could refinance. Now, there are a couple of suggestions that I like to offer to clients as we're going through this. Number one is if you do opt for KeyBank financing, what I recommend if you're able to do is continue to pay down the principal over the 3-year period. So by the time you get to the end, your balloon payment is less than it would be if you weren't paying down the principal. And I think this is something important to note because a lot of times, we're just so excited to get that cash flow in, we want to spend it on something, but I would certainly recommend putting it towards the principal to get as small of a balloon payment as possible at the end of year 3. Something else that one of our clients in Belize just did is she was able to refinance her home in the States, and then she was able to use that money to put towards her condo purchase in Belize. Now you can do something very similar if you are looking for options, either refi your home or get a second mortgage in your home country. I'm guessing there you're able to get smaller interest rates, and then from there take that cash and use it towards your purchase here. So I do want to note that there are examples. I think it's going to be very, very difficult, if not impossible, to find a bank that is going to finance your property in Nicaragua. Typically, banks in your home country, I'm going to use US for example, that's where I'm from. In the US, they would not look at a property in Nicaragua because they just don't have any legal jurisdiction over it. So there are creative ways that you are able to own the homes. In addition to that, and I don't know if we have it here in the presentation, but I do want to highlight 2 more options that I think are very, very favorable. One is we do accept cryptocurrency. So if you have Bitcoin, if you have Ethereum, whatever you have, let's talk about it because we do accept Bitcoin. Just note at this point, there is a 20% premium on it because of the volatility. We are working with a company that will hopefully help us get that premium percentage down, but you're at least able to put down that deposit with the cryptocurrency. And then from there, we'll figure it out when it comes time for the payment. But just something to bear in mind. And then the second option that I'm going to have you consider, if you're from the US, if you're an American, you have an IRA, or you may have an IRA, you may not have an IRA, but if you have an IRA, you are able to get it in a self-directed custodian. And then from there, you are able to use those IRA funds towards the purchase or for the purchase of one of these homes. Now, what I want to mention is if you are using your IRA, it cannot be self-serving. This home cannot be self-serving. So you cannot stay in your home. This is primarily for investment purposes. If after some time you decide that you want to move down to Nicaragua, you want to move into your tiny home, you'll just have to pay the taxes on that with the US. And then from there, you are able to occupy the home. But in the meantime, the self-directed IRA is going to be primarily for a purchaser who is looking at this from the investment perspective. So to quickly recap, we do have a couple of options. If you didn't necessarily want to pay cash, we do have financing here with Key Bank, 50%, 50%. You're able to pay with cryptocurrency. And then the third is if you're from the States, you are able to use your self-directed IRA. Our team can certainly help answer any questions that you may have about those three specific options. Just feel free to let us know. You can type into the Q&A section, or you can just email the property consultant that you've been talking with, and we can get those answered for you. Why don't we shift over to the next slide here, Spencer? Perfect, I think this is you.
Alrighty. So we're just gonna, Rachel, how much time do we have here?
We're about on the hour, but I think that will be done in the next 5 minutes, and then from there we'll be able to go through the questions. Okay,
perfect. Okay. So I'm just gonna go over the general goal, the ultimate goal here with Ava, and what the thoughts are behind it. You know, whether or not you're looking for rental property, a vacation home, somewhere in between, it really is a one of a kind opportunity here, because at this price range to get ROI like that right on the beach, it's really a unique opportunity here. There's a lot of reasons to want to live more efficiently and self-sustainably, and a lot of people can be opposed to the idea of it because they think it has to be more expensive or less practical, or come with some sort of sacrifice. But we have proved with the Malago Verde community that doesn't need to be a factor. It doesn't need to be less practical or more expensive. In fact, it's quite the opposite often. And we're going to continue to prove that with the Ava community, and prove that it can, you know, you don't lose any of the luxuries of modern life or just because you're living off the grid or solar, because these homes really are modern, very unique modern tiny homes that have all the features of any modern home, but with you know, fully off grid. So there doesn't need to be the connection between, you know, sacrificing anything and living off the grid is the main point here. And we have a video here. I'm not sure if the video is on actually, but Rachel,
let me step in for this quick moment, and then we will show you that video that is so awesome. Spencer played it for us before, but I want to make sure that everybody is aware that through ownership of an Ava home, you are able to apply for permanent residency in Nicaragua. It is an investor residency. That's the specific one you'll be applying for. And how the structure works is you will decide what you want to invest in. You'll work with the attorney to set up a local company, an SA. You will title the Ava home in the name of your SA, and then from there you are able to apply for residency. So you're able to add dependents. Dependents are children up to 18 or your spouse, and you can see the cost right there on the screen, $1,300 per applicant. It doesn't matter if that's a dependent or the primary applicant, the price there is the same. And then the corporation, that is for setting up that local SA company that you're going to be titling your Ava home in. So just bear that in mind. That's a really great perk. If you want the residency details, let us know. We can get those over to you. You'll see there at the bottom of the screen, just email us info@ecidevelopment.com. And in the subject line, write NICA residency, and we'll send you the details for this. It's really quite easy. You do have to spend the first couple of months there in country as you're going through the residency process. So there is a little bit of that time component early on, but I know a handful of you are looking to move or at least spend considerable of time in the country. So that's a great thing to do, a great process to start while you're there in Nicaragua. And then after 4 years, I spoke to the attorney yesterday, you're able to get your citizenship in the country. Just note that they do not allow for dual citizenship, so you will have to give up your other citizenships or passports that you have for the Nicaragua one. But I at least say certainly start with a residency. There's no downside to that. There's no time requirement as to how much time you have to spend in the country after you get the residency, but it's just such an easy plan B or C or D or wherever you're at in this stage. And you can obviously apply for it with ownership of the Ava home. So again, let us know if you'd like more information there, and we'll get you those details. But that's it for me from now. Let's see this video, and then we'll get into the Q&A. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. And so the pool that you saw over there, that's at the Las Perlas condos. There's also a restaurant over there. There's the golf course, as you saw there on the screen. So there's a lot of amenities that Patrick touched upon earlier that Spencer also mentioned. Incredible surfing, fishing right there at the Gran Pacifica community. So I think, I know a couple people asked this question previously, but Gran Pacifica is the overall community. And then within Gran Pacifica, we have a handful of neighborhoods, including Ava. But feel free to request this free copy of the handbook, info@granpacifica.com. This is just a much more comprehensive overview of Nicaragua. I would also recommend, if you have not yet heard Patrick's Nicaragua 101 presentation that he mentioned earlier, just email us directly, info@granpacifica, or email at ECI Development, whatever you have handy. Email us there, and we will certainly get this information over to you. Great reads, great listens, and for those who have not yet had the chance to visit, I think it'll give you a very good idea of what the country is like. So why don't we go to the last slide? And yes, awesome, Q&A time. Spencer, if you have anything you wanted to add there, feel free to, and I'll pull up the questions in the meantime.
Okay, I know one of the main questions that gets asked a lot, I'll just start with this, would be the Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi is received through a radio tower, and then a central tower that will be near the Ava community, and that will send out a signal that will be picked up by individual receivers on the home. So you'll have your individual connection within your home, and that sends out a Wi-Fi signal that can be any of your devices can read. So this is a very consistent way of doing it, as at the Milagro Verde community, we do use this exact system, and being fully solar powered homes, off-grid homes, not reliant on when the grid has power. When the power there's been situations where the power has gone out in large chunks of the country, and not only did the Milagro Verde community still have power, but it still had internet because of the way that this internet signal is sent. It doesn't affect it at all. So there's people from all over. That day, I remember being there that day. I think it was a couple of days actually, and there's people from all over the community of Gran Pacifica heading over to Malago Verde to collect internet that day, because some of them had important emails and things to send off. And so in that sense, it's nice to know that you're not reliant on what happens surrounding in the country and everything, to know that you'll still have consistent internet on site there.
All right, perfect. So we will start from the top here and then work our way down. There are a handful of great questions, and Patrick and Spencer, as long as you're both able to stay on, we'll roll through these. And then when we probably get to about 6:30, if we make it to that point, we will we'll answer any questions that come in there after with your specific property consultant. But I did just want to mention, I received a message from our sales team, and Natalie just mentioned that there are 3 out of the 15 homes in phase 1 left, number 9, number 14, and number 15. So I'm going to just start off with this question here, Patrick and Spencer, that's not asked, but I think is going to be very relevant for everybody here on the conversation. Those first 15 homes are in phase 2. How soon would you be ready to release phase 2, and will they have the same floor plans?
Yes, at this point, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay. Having a little bit of a storm here in Belize, so we'll see how much I'll get to answer. Yeah, obviously, we just have announced phase 1 in kind of blocks of 15 to 20 homes in the community, and it looks like, probably by the end of this call, phase 1 is going to be spoken for, and we'll just release phase 2 right away. And yeah, the plan is for the first 50 homes that are shown in the site map to use these floor plans. I mean, there may be slight variations that we can accommodate, but that's kind of the plans.
All right, perfect. All right, so we're going to start here at the top of the question list, and Brian asks, how much can you generally power at once or over a day using the available power supply?
Well,
go ahead, Smith.
Okay. These homes are pretty much the way it's designed is you calculate all of the power use that will be in the home. So you combine all the electronics in the home, including lighting, air conditioning, fridge. There are certain things that are very large and consistent draws, and other things like LED lighting that are lesser, but you combine them all and combine them in such a way that would be the maximum usage. And then we size the systems based on that. So to survive through the night and into the next day when the sun comes back out and continues to recharge the batteries again. So it's designed to have everything in the home be running pretty inefficiently, if you want to put it that way, and still be able to survive. And if you are a little more power conscious than the average person, then you can easily, these homes will definitely never die on you. But they're designed to be rented out by people that don't necessarily know much about power conservation, so and still be able to survive through those conditions. So they're sized in a way a little overkill as far as power demand or power sizing.
All right, fantastic. And you started to touch upon this a little bit before with the river, Spencer, but are the local lakes freshwater, and how far away are they?
I can take this one if you want.
Yeah.
I think the lakes that you're referring to are Lake Nicaragua, or Colsi Boca, it's called in the ancient language there. That's the really big one that is beside Granada, and then there's Lake Managua beside the city of Managua. Well, Managua is about, like I said, about 45 minutes away from the property, and Granada is, to be fair, an hour and 20 minutes or so away, and so they're right beside the lakes, and there's a great lake tours they have at the Granada port there, where you do these jungle tours. There's 365 islands just outside of Granada in that lake. It was all created by however many thousands of years ago by the explosion of the Masaya volcano, and created all these islands in the lake. And you can do a tour now, and one of the islands is called Monkey Island. So there's howler monkeys, and well, those are actually not howlers. What's the other name of the monkeys? Help me out here, Spence.
Capuchin?
No, they have capuchin as well. But anyway, there's a few different types of monkeys on the island, and they'll literally, you can go up. The boat with tours will go right up to them, and the monkey, usually Lucy, is the fan favorite. That's the monkey's name is Lucy, and her son Michael. And they come onto the boat often, and you know, you got to be a little bit careful with what's in your pocket, because if they think it's food, they'll grab it and run back into the trees. But it's pretty cool, and you know, there's homes on those islands and restaurants and things like that. So it's a pretty neat tour to the lakes there.
All right, perfect. Next question I have, and we just got this one, is the internet. This is another question. Is it easy to move in terms of flying there now? We are in West Europe and flights are very limited right now and in the next 6 months. And so we touched upon that a little bit before, but flights will probably continue to be limited. But if you are able to find one, let us know. We will certainly help out with picking you up from the airport, making sure that you arrive to Gran Pacifica safely. But it just, you know, depends where in the world you are at this point, and then the availability of flights with each of those carriers. I'm not too sure what it is with West Europe. It looks like you've done a little bit of research there, but I'm going to expect that in the beginning of September, mid-September, you'll see a lot more flights options.
Hey, Rachel, let me just grab the one on the internet here, because
Sure.
we're getting asked about the internet a lot. First of all, the internet, there's high speed. We actually do streaming television in all of Gran Pacifica now. So, you know, for instance, in the condos that we have, I have 2 flat screen TVs in each one of the condos, one in the bedroom and one in the living room. And they, you know, I watch a lot of sports, you know, and sports, if anybody's familiar with streaming sports, it takes a lot of bandwidth. I have no issues with it. So the internet speed is whatever you want to pay for. We have a base package that is enough bandwidth. It's between 10 and 15 megabits per second, I believe, and it's enough bandwidth to run two TVs and whatever whatever else you want to do on your laptop and that sort of thing. And so it's fine. It works well. Everybody uses Netflix and everything over there, and we also have some of the different streaming television services. So if you want to watch CNN or Fox News or whichever thing you want to watch, it's all available there. I think we have over 800 different channels, and of course, for anybody that's familiar with you know, Amazon Fire Stick or Apple TV or any of those things, you can watch whatever is available on their apps. So it's pretty much unlimited. The Ava community has really been designed for digital nomads, and that's really people that are typically kind of living in one spot from 3 to 6 months and then going to the next place in the world that, you know, maybe it's the Maldives next or wherever it is, and they're totally dependent on internet because they work from home or wherever their home may be. And so the community is really designed for that. And you know, we've worked with the company that provides internet to Gran Pacifica for many years now, and it, you know, it's a good system.
Fantastic. Thank you. And right, so Gabriel's question kind of segues into that. He also said, can I do my work remotely there? Yes, you can. And then if you wanted to apply for residency, we'll get you the details on that, Gabriel, but it is pretty straightforward, especially if you do have the ability to work remotely as you're going through the residency process, since you do need to be there in the country. But just send us an email and we'll certainly get those details over to you. All right, next question.
Also, Rachel, just one.
Sure.
Let me just jump in on that residency thing, because you don't have to be a resident, you know, of Nicaragua to be there. In fact, most people are not. They give you a 3-month tourist visa that you can renew, and then typically after the second renewal, which would be 6 months of being there, they generally ask you to kind of go out to the country and back in. So a lot of people will drive down to Costa Rica for a weekend and then come back. I did that for many years before I became a resident. And, you know, it's also another option. Now, obviously, you know, residency is nice. You can stay there. You don't have to ever worry about it. For a Canadian like me, it makes a huge difference in taxes, you know, to not be a Canadian resident anymore. So there's lots of benefits to residency, but I just don't want people to feel like that's a requirement.
Yes, and thank you for mentioning that, because that is accurate with the 90-day visa there, or 33-month visa. So yes, that's what you get as a tourist. So you do at least have that benefit there as you're kind of feeling around, seeing if you want to apply for residency or not. All right, so I see a lot of great questions. So I'm going to suggest we try to get through as many as we can, because I'm guessing other people have these questions. And then if anybody wants some further clarification, just let us know. And then Robert asked us, and we did touch upon it a little bit in the presentation, are you open for an on-site visit or long weekend on-site stay in the next few weeks to see the project? Yes, Gran Pacifica is open. We have had guests staying with us over the past couple of weeks. So Robert, let us know when you're planning to come down and we can certainly accommodate you. I don't know if you're already in Nicaragua or if you're planning to come from an outside country, just check airlines and we can certainly work with you there. Here's another question from Dan, and I think we answered this for you, but he says, can we swim in the ocean? And the answer is absolutely. And Spencer mentioned how beautiful, and Patrick did too, how beautiful the beach is there. And it is just incredible. You're seeing that right there on the screen. That is from the Asuchillo Beach. A fellow there who's surfing, but you can swim, you can boogie board, you can wade, you can do what you really enjoy doing. Next question I'm seeing here, and this might be one for you, Spencer, is from Jason, and he says, are these tiny homes really for single people, couples, or even squeeze a family?
Oh, really all of the above. I would say a smaller family would definitely want the Macaw model, which is the 2-bedroom. But I mean, it depends how comfortable you are with your family. You don't necessarily need it. Right down to the Perico, there is you could sleep 4 people in there. But as far as having some level of privacy, I would suggest the Macaw, as it has a second completely disconnected bedroom. But yes, it's for all of the above, because realistically, anywhere from 1 to 4, I would say, is probably about, as far as comfortability goes, 4 or 5 people is what I'd cap at, even in the Macaw. But yeah, all options there. Yeah,
perfect. And I just saw a message come through about someone who's been at the beach before, and he's like, don't forget to mention that the water is in the low 80s year round. So there's a nice plus, as well as you do have warm.
Whoever it was just read my mind, because I was thinking the same thing. I'm a terrible surfer, but I'm not a surfer. I tried it once and I realized I would be a terrible surfer if I continued to try. But I do swim in that ocean all the time, and it's beautiful. It's warm. It's all year round. It's about 82 to 84 Fahrenheit degrees.
Fantastic. Now, the next question I'm seeing here from Doug is, are the walls of the buildings poured concrete? How thick are they to create an air mass inside that maintains heating and cooling?
So I can take that one if you want, Spence.
Yes, sorry, yeah, nice.
The homes are steel reinforced concrete columns, but they're block walls. They're concrete block walls between that. So it's concrete with plaster. So as you know, blocks have an airspace in them and retain the insulation factor of that. The homes we built at Milagro Verde, which were the previous eco-friendly homes, it's amazing how cool they stay. I mean, there's a lot of features that are going to go into these Ava homes as well that we didn't really get a chance to talk about. But for instance, clear story windows, it's basically, slat style windows near the top of the space of the walls, so heat can escape. And when you have concrete walls and tile floors, you're dragging a lot of cool air up from the bottom, and these homes stay cool quite well without even air conditioning. They're going to have air conditioning as well, but there's a lot of cooling just in the natural design of the homes. And I think there was something I saw the question, but I think it said something about how thick are they. Well, they're just under a foot thick by the time you've got a concrete block with plaster on both sides of it. That's the probable method. We're actually looking at Coventech walls in addition to that. So I'm not sure if people are familiar with Coventech, but it's basically styrofoam walls encased in concrete.
Yeah,
and
ICF,
yeah. And so, yeah, sorry, Coventech's a brand name, but ICF methodology. So there's a few different things going on here, but obviously the goal is to make them as insulated and have as high an R value as possible. Or, obviously we'll want to run the air conditioner as little as possible.
Fantastic. Alrighty, next question I'm seeing here. And there's one that I just keep seeing over and over, so I'm going to share that one first. And that is, what phase are you with construction? What has been completed? When will the pool area be completed? Are the questions that I think we want to get answered. I see a lot of those here.
Oh, this is all pre-construction right now. Phase 1 will begin break ground in January, and that will include the common area as well. It's about a 5-month build process from the point we break ground on a particular home, and there will be a slight offset, but multiple will be going up at once. And so this is all reservations right now. There's no construction, although Gran Pacifica does have a lot of construction happening currently, as well as plenty of complete homes.
Absolutely. And just something to also bear in mind is that Ava is one of the handful of neighborhoods that we have at Gran Pacifica. So if anybody wanted to come and at least enjoy Las Perlas or Casita Village or the other homes, those are available for you while these are getting constructed. We have over 100 addresses at this point and even more condominiums. So there are at least places for you to stay as this is getting constructed. All right. The next question, oh gosh, I'm seeing so many great questions here. This is a good one. Is the community dog friendly? We have a small Westie.
Yes, dogs will be allowed. The idea, the HOA is still being finalized, but the idea is to have it be relatively as relaxed as we can make it, within reason, of course. As far as dogs go, there will be some rules in place about, dogs can't be left unattended in common areas and things of that nature, but there isn't a leash rule right now. But the HOA will also be, once enough homes are built and there's enough residents there, the HOA will be handed off to the residents so that they can make the decisions themselves. But initially, as a beginning, yes, it is very animal friendly for sure, and within reason. I don't know about cows, but dogs for sure.
Perfect. Next question here is from Joe, and he asks, what's the best way to store larger things like surfboards?
Well, most of the homes will have some sort of storage built in, but there's also the option to build up to a 6x6 shed or structure, but a shed, for lack of a better word, in the backyard. And we do offer that as well as an option, as an add-on, so that you can store things like surfboards, other water toys, kayaks, bikes, and the sheds that we offer will be matching the aesthetic of the home as well, so they will look quite nice.
Fantastic. Next question here is from Steve, and he asks about the drinking water quality.
Personally, myself, I have lived, I've spent a good over probably a year and a half in total at Gran Pacifica. But I had spent a 9-month straight stint there at one point, and I drank right from the taps. I don't recommend doing that throughout Nicaragua, of course, but at Gran Pacifica, the water is treated to drinkable quality. I drank from the taps for months on end there and never got sick from the water on site.
Just to add to that point too, we actually had a company from the US tested, and they literally said, you guys should bottle this water. It's some of the best water they'd ever tested. And we do actually have it tested every 2 weeks. So to make sure that it's, part of the health requirements in the country, but it is really good quality water.
Fantastic. Another question I'm seeing here from Yodi, and she says, great project, an opportunity for investors. Love the unique concept for a simple living. And then she says, is the project, or will the property be title of deeded to the purchaser even if they are foreigners? So the answer is yes. The property, as a foreign owner or even a local owner, you do get full title to the property. So great question, Yodi. Thank you for answering it. And yes, you do get title. All right, I'm seeing a lot more questions here. We'll go for the next 4 minutes, and then from there we will get in touch with you personally if we didn't have the chance to get to your question. Here's another great one from Gabriel, and he says, "Are the houses furnished or not? If we move from Europe, we will have nothing with a zero." So there you go, Spencer. That one's for you.
Alrighty, yes, there is a furniture package, and there's an option to have the home be completely turnkey or when you show up at the door.
Fantastic. Thank you. Another great one from Gabriel. It says 30,000 for investor residency. Is that on top of the 100,000 for the house or included in it? So really great question. So for the investor residency, you just need to invest a minimum of $30,000. So that 30,000 would be included. It would be part of that purchase price of the tiny home. Now, the one thing that's not included, or the two things that are not included, are the residency fees, and then the fee to set up that corporation. So when we looked at the prices a little bit before, it was $1,500 for the corporation and $1,300 per person. So there wouldn't be an additional 30,000. What we're doing is just looking at the value that you've invested in the country, and then from there, as long as it's over 30,000, you would be able to get that investor residency. So thank you, Gabriel. I'm glad we were able to clear that up there. Here's a great one from Alan, and he said, "Do residences of Ava have access to all Gran Pacifica amenities?"
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good, very good. All right, next one here is from Steve, and he asks about laundry amenities.
So there will be a washing machine every home will have a washing machine, but they will not have dryers. This is for power reasons and also kind of eco-conscious reasons. You can get propane powered dryers as far as I know, but when it comes to Nicaragua, clothes do dry really fast, and so there will be racking systems set up. Certain models will have racking systems that are on pulleys that will come down from the roof, so you can dry your clothes. But they will also be set up in a way that aren't necessarily completely visible from the walking paths. Tucked away in corners of the property that with hedges and things of that nature to kind of make it so they're not aesthetically a nuisance.
Fantastic. And then Steve mentioned here the TV feed info. How are you going to be getting the TV and the channels?
That will be through likely Amazon Fire Stick, which, because they allow third-party apps on them, you can get almost any channel you need, and through that Fire Stick and the internet. Of course, there's other options if you prefer other smart TV options, but from our experience, Amazon Fire Sticks are the most reliable and have the most options as far as channels go.
Perfect. And here's another great one from Goji, and the question is, how far apart in feet are the tiny homes?
Well, each lot is averages about 2,100 square feet. They're not all exactly that, but that is the general average amongst all the lots. They're all going to be quite close to that. So the homes being the largest, just under 500 square feet. So depending, it varies from home to home, but there will be all vegetation will be a big factor. That'll be implemented as much as we can to kind of create a divide. You want your sense of community, but you don't want to be seeing your neighbors necessarily every day in your backyard. So we understand that. So it will be a lot of vegetation used to divide the homes.
All right, fantastic. And you alluded to this a little bit before, Patrick, but the question is, and I think it's a great one to just highlight again, is, are the homes built to withstand bad weather or natural disasters?
Yeah, sure. Spence, you were talking about it earlier, I think, too. But
yeah, I mean, yes, because they're going to be concrete and rebar, so it's one of the strongest original style constructions you can do. But on top of that, being such a small footprint, they're really compact, and there's no large spans as far as ceiling spans. There's no area that there is structural integrity as at risk. So because they're so compact and they are fully concrete rebar homes, they're going to be very, very solid. And I would probably rather be in them than most homes in North America, definitely, being wood construction up here, wood frame construction. So yeah, as far as storm resistance, they're going to be just about as high as you can get, almost a bit of a bunker in a way.
All right, fantastic. Well, I'm just seeing a lot more come in here. So what we're going to do is get these answered to you individually. We have a list of here of who's asking the question. If you showed up as anonymous attendee, I think one or two of you did, just make sure that you're emailing us info@ecidevelopment.com. Unfortunately, we don't know who that is, so we wouldn't be able to email you the answers. But let's definitely connect. I see a few more about HOA, so we'll certainly get on the line about that. And then also get you the information that you need. As we mentioned at this point in phase 1, which is 15 homes, there are 3 that are currently available, number 9, number 14, and number 15. There is a refundable deposit that you, if you would like to secure these, one of these or maybe 2 or all 3 of these, all you need to do is get with us. We'll send you a reservation form. There's a $999 refundable deposit after you receive the paperwork. But what I would recommend is contacting us sooner rather than later, because I do expect that these 3 will go in the next little bit of time here. This is one of our best and well-attended webinars to date. And so I thank everybody for joining us. I'm glad to see there's such a strong eco-conscious community out there. And perhaps we'll all be neighbors one day. So Patrick, thank you. Spencer, thank you. If you do have any final words, feel free to share.
Well, thanks, Rachel. Appreciate it. I think it's pretty exciting to see so many people interested, and I think it's going to be an amazing community to be part of. I know I'm going to have one of those homes there myself, so it's going to be fun to have these folks as neighbors.
Yeah, I'm on the same fence there. I'm excited to see how this goes. I was really excited to be a part of this whole development here, and seeing all these different technologies and ideas put into place, and seeing how much of a response it got is awesome to see. So thank you very much for having me, Rachel. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Spencer. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We did record this session, so we will get that out to you in the next couple hours. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to process. Check your emails. We will be sending you an email afterwards with additional information, but do reach out to us, I would say, sooner rather than later if you are interested in getting it on phase 1. And we'll certainly go from there. Thank you, everybody, and have a really great day, morning, evening, wherever in the world you may be. Bye-bye.